All right, everyone. Welcome into the second NBA DFS live stream on Occupy Fantasy. But the key thing here is it's our first two-man live stream. We are going to be bringing in Chuck. Chuck has had a pretty awesome run this season thus far in NBA DFS. So he's been the man handling the Discord chat. What, half the nights there, Chuck?
Most of the nights, yeah, 5 nights a week.
Yeah, so we're just going to be breaking down the slate like we typically would. We'll start off with the injuries. So we'll start off with today's injury report, kind of just discussing that. So we'll go game by game on DraftKings, kind of discussing that, if that works. So I know the first game is going to be Washington versus New York. We're not seeing that many injuries for that. So kind of how would you go about attacking that first game?
Well, with Washington, New York, so I'm kind of looking at New York a little bit like Toronto, where I'm really interested in most of the starters, and it's just because they play so many minutes, and it's kind of like with the projections. So the projections are based on expected minutes, right? And so Tom Thibodeau, for a while, he was running his starters into the ground. He lightened up their minutes a little bit, but we're still seeing Julius Randle, hitting close to 40 minutes. He played 37 without the overtime last game. So I'm still really interested in getting to Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. They're coming in a little bit lower owned today. They're kind of expensive, and I think they're going to go a little bit overlooked in the first game. But Washington is a team that I'm okay targeting players against. I know that their defense has been I think it was better earlier in the season, and it's a little different with Daniel Gafford in there now. But I really like getting to some New York pieces today, mainly just Brunson and Randall. And then from the Washington side, to me, Kuzma and Porzingis are pretty much tournament plays every day. Kuzma's price is pretty reasonable on DraftKings, the 8,200. Porzingis, the 8,900. I still think that's a fine price for him. It's his return to Madison Square Garden. Remember, he played for the Knicks a while ago. And so those are the main guys I'm going to be interested. Like the role players and other pieces here. I think there's better value plays in other games.
So quick question, just with the New York side of it. So I have been very hesitant to kind of roster, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I've been hesitant to roster both Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson a little bit with RJ Barrett back. But at the same time, I guess I'm more or less been worried about rostering both of them at the same time with RJ Barrett back. I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's right, or do you think it's fine? Like, all three of them can coexist and really go off.
So most of the adjustments I make are based on what is it going to do for my set of 150 that I'm entering on DraftKings. And so I don't necessarily set rules to only have one of Julius Randle or Jalen Brunson. I think it's a mistake. Two high usage starters, kind of like that. Another example, Jimmy Butler and Bam. I would never really set a rule to only play one. Since I'm not going to have that much of them anyway, I don't think that they're going to, if I have them in one or two out of my 150 together, I think that's fine.
Yeah, that makes sense. And guys, if you didn't catch that, Chuck was saying 150 lineups. Chuck is taking down a few GPPs, and a few is being light with it. He's taking down. He's had a good year thus far, GPP wise. So that's what he's saying when he's talking about that stuff. I am much more of a single entry kind of mindset. He's much more the GPP mindset. That's kind of the really beneficial part of this, is you get kind of both sides of it. So yeah, I agree with that. I don't mind that approach. So for Washington, you're saying both Kyle Kuzma and Porzingis are going to be GPP plays. I agree with that. I love the price point of Porzingis now that's finally come down below 9K. And so is there any lineup path? I know you kind of just said you don't really do that approach, but would you say GPP wise, stacking wise, could be potentially maybe with Jalen Brunson, and probably be tough to fit them in? Jalen Brunson, Kyle Kuzma, Porzingis, and Randall. I guess if you could choose three of those in a stack, which one would you go with?
Well, if I had to pick, the one I would leave out is probably Porzingis, but I think a lot of that is due to pricing. With Julius Randle, he's really expensive, but Tom Thibodeau has no problem pushing him. He was playing more minutes before, but with Obi Toppin coming back, even if Obi Toppin's only playing, say, 8 to 12 minutes, that's still a couple minutes coming off of Julius Randle.
Yeah. And I mean, he had 47 against them the last time on, just a few nights ago, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and like you said, with RJ Barrett back, it is going to directly affect Brunson and Randall, but their prices are kind of up there, but their ownership is also low, so I'm willing to take some shots on them.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and get into the next game here. After this game, if anyone has any questions, we'll go ahead and answer that. I think we'll do that 2-game basis there. So we'll start with the next game, Atlanta versus Dallas. It's a 233 over and under. Let me check the spread here. I think it's a close game. Yeah, 2.5 point spread. So we don't have to worry about a blowout risk at all. Looking at the Occupy model, let's see which players are popping up there. Give me a second to sort it out. Dallas and Atlanta. Here we go. So looking at the OF index, we're looking at the FanDuel value. DFS is popping up. Christian Wood, John Collins. Then looking at DK value. Let's see here. DFS again, Hunter, John Collins, Reggie Bullock, Murray. So I guess where are you kind of attacking that game if you were trying to attack that game?
So one thing to note about this game is it has a 133 total, which is pretty hefty for Dallas. Atlanta's obviously a pace up spot, so I think it's great for Luka. So Luka's the starting point for this team. The problem with the other players on Dallas besides Christian Wood is their rates next to Luka are just so low. 0.5, 0.6 fantasy points per minute. And so I think Luka's price is pretty reasonable, 12,400 on both sites. His ownership seems to come in higher than projected every day. We have it at 25 on DK, 28 on FanDuel right now. If it comes in around that, I'm going to love getting to Luka today against this Atlanta team. And then Christian Wood is really the only other Dallas player I'm interested in right now. Spencer Dinwiddie is there, but with Christian Wood in the starting lineup and Christian Wood playing heavy minutes now, we have Christian Wood projected for 33 minutes, and he's been playing more than that in a few games. So projection for 33 with the potential to play more, it just takes away from Spencer Dinwiddie. We have the other guys like Reggie Bullock, DFS. I see DFS is popping near the top of value. That 3,600 price on DraftKings is pretty, it's pretty reasonable. He's going to come in low owned. There are going to be other better value plays, but with the 4% ownership, if you want to take some shots on DFS, it's not the worst play.
Yeah, you kind of said it well there with the model really focused on projected minutes. And with that, it seems like DFS is always popping up as a good value. And I mean, it's not like he's terrible. He does hit the value a decent amount of times. And I don't know. It's just, you nailed it perfectly well there with Dallas. It's Christian Wood, maybe Dinwiddie, and that's about it. For Atlanta, though, I don't know. I kind of like the battle between Trae Young and Luka a little bit tonight. Is that something you would maybe try to stack, or if one of them goes off, the other one might go off, or what is your approach with that with Atlanta?
So with in regards to stacking, if I'm building a single entry, I can see where, maybe I think I want to play Luka, so I probably want to have a guy from the other side. But when I'm making my 150, I don't really worry about it. That's why I try not to look at my lineups before I submit them. As long as my exposures are kind of where I want them to be, then I'm okay. As far as Trae Young and Luka go, remember these guys were traded for each other on draft night. Looking at their past games against each other, they try to go off, but it's nothing it's so significant that we have to take it into account tonight. And so with narratives like that, if they already look good in the projections, I'm usually okay giving them maybe another 3 to 5%.
That makes sense.
I don't really take it into account too much.
Yeah. So we don't have any questions. I think that concludes that game. We don't have any questions. It's just a few statements saying, hey, Chuck's absolutely been killing it. So, that's fun. And then someone was asking if you considered Luka the best player of all time.
Would I consider Luka to be the best player of all time? He is a very good basketball player.
Good answer. All right, we'll get into the next game here. We are going to be looking at Cleveland versus Memphis. So this game has the potential to be a blowout. Memphis is favored to win by 7.5 points. Pulling up the over and under, it's at 228. So it's not a game that you would, I guess, stay away from, but not a game that you are particularly attacking. Is there anyone you see in that game that you like, maybe more so than the public, obviously with Mitchell out, that could help some of the plays there?
So with Cleveland and Memphis, I think it's a tough matchup for both teams. Cleveland is pretty good defensively. Memphis is a tough team just overall. So Cleveland is missing Donovan Mitchell tonight, and the guy that gets the most immediate boost is Karis LeVert. We're showing his ownership at 15% on DraftKings, 26 on FanDuel. He's right at 51 and 5,200. His ownership is going to come in higher than that. It hasn't updated yet. We need to see the starting lineup, but assuming he's starting, we haven't projected for 31 minutes. He's probably going to play a few more, and Karis LeVert's going to be one of the best value plays on the slate. And then one of the things I was looking at with when Donovan Mitchell is off the court, the guy that gets the biggest boost is actually Jared Allen. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and then Jared Allen, huge boost, and then Evan Mobley and Karis LeVert are next with a little boost. But Jared Allen's going to come in also another center with very low ownership that I like today. I think we want to take some shots on Jared Allen, but Karis LeVert is really the priority from Cleveland. And then Darius Garland, if he was coming in with a little bit lower ownership, I would like him a lot more. 17% on DraftKings, 23 on FanDuel. It seems appropriate, so I'm okay getting
that too. It kind of feels like people saw the news and they just instantly went to Garland there instead of really diving down into it. Because for me, it has been, all right, Mitchell's out. we're going Levert, pretty much. And like you said with Jared Allen, I feel like he's a strong play. The one thing that I'm slightly worried about is that I feel like the previous games, and I haven't looked this up yet. When we saw this last, wasn't Mobley out and Jared Allen was kind of benefiting the most then because Mobley was just not playing as much?
There was one game where Mobley was in that he did well too, but I know Mobley was off the court for one of them. Let me see if I
Yeah.
can pull that up real quick. With
Yeah, because I don't know. I just remember a slate specifically where I was attacking Allen and Levert when in a similar situation. I think Seti as well. But
So for me, Chetty, I'm more interested in playing when one of the big men is out because I feel like he runs the bench. Where right now Kevin Love is going to run the bench, but Chetty is going to get a boost since Karis LeVert is in the starting lineup. Chetty's going to have more control of the bench, like I was just saying. So with
I
Kevin
mean, at
Love
mid
there,
price, it takes what
yeah,
25 points, DK points. Like it's obviously a risky one in GPPs. I feel like it'd be maybe 5% ownership.
yeah, it's a 9 game slate, and Chetty's mid priced. He should step into a few more minutes today, so I'm okay taking shots on guys like this. But just keep in mind it's a 9 game slate, and there are better value plays. But if you want to take shots on these low owned guys, I mean that's it's a good thing to help you win a tournament.
Yeah.
And I just looked it up with Evan Mobley on the court. Jared Allen is going to get a lesser boost than he would when Evan Mobley's off. But Karis LeVert, he still gets a boost, but Karis LeVert's going to be the main target from Cleveland.
Yeah. And how far would you go to say with Karis LeVert? Is that like if we were doing a top 10 priority list, would he be top 5?
Would Karis LeVert be top 5? He'd be top 10 for sure. I'm not sure about top 5. It's something weird with like on Karis LeVert chalk days. It's kind of uncomfortable because you never know what you're going to get. Are we going to get 38 fantasy points or are we going to get 13? He's probably going to play 36 plus minutes tonight either way. But I think we kind of have to play him and take what we get.
Yeah, that makes sense. For Memphis, anything that you are liking in particular there? I mean, Ja Morant's. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's difficult just given the matchup, like you said. Don't want to play Steven Adams at 6K going against Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, although he has had some ceiling games. Obviously, could go off for 50 or 40 DK points like we have seen in the past. I guess who benefits the most if someone like Steven Adams struggles, if Ja Morant struggles? Who could benefit more that probably is going to be a little bit lower owned?
Well, the guy I'm looking at that kind of stands out to me, and I hate playing him, but it's Dylan Brooks. He's 5,100 on DraftKings, 58 on FanDuel, projected for 2% and 1% ownership. He's showing up as a top value play from this game. And Dylan Brooks is he might be more frustrating to play than Karis LeVert. It's kind of the same thing on Dylan Brooks' chalk days. Like, you kind of have to play him when he's cheap and take what you get. So he is a high-risk tournament play, but he's cheap and he's low-owned. Other than Ja's always going to be a great tournament play, especially when he's coming in low-owned around this 10K price. Jaren Jackson, even at this higher price, I'm okay getting to if he's coming in at 0% and 1% ownership. And then the Steven Adams at 6K, as long as he's under 5% ownership, I'm probably going to take a couple shots there today. But there's so many good value centers that we want to get to that it's hard to take up spots with these guys.
Yeah, and that is a pretty low ownership, though. Yeah.
Yeah, this Memphis team is going pretty low owned. Even Desmond Bane is pretty interesting at 1%, 7,400 on DraftKings.
And even if it's a blowout, obviously it's going to be their players that are going off if it is a blowout. So yeah, that is pretty interesting thought process there. So they said, Gabriel said, give one core play I can start my builds out with. So far, I think LeVert would be a good starting point. Obviously, as we get into the next few games, when more core plays pop up, we'll give that to you guys. This is, we got a few hours before lineup lock. So if some slate breaking news pops up, we can obviously hit that. And maybe we'll get some core plays that way as well. So the next game that we got here is going to be Indy versus OKC. And to me, this is kind of like one of the games. I know you kind of mentioned you don't stack that many games. To me, this seems like one you could make an exception to the rule because both teams kind of poor defensively, high over and under. The spread is very close. It's not projected to be a blowout either way. To me, there's a lots of ways in which you could attack this, but at the same time, OKC kind of spreads the wealth a little bit. It's Giddy, it's Shy that you like, and then it's whoever from there. And then with with the Pacers, kind of what's your approach now with Halliburton out? Is it Mathurin? Is it TJ McConnell? Where are you looking at there?
So the Pacers are a really difficult team right now because Halliburton's out. With TJ McConnell just playing like Luka Doncic over the past few games, like FanDuel did the right thing. They raised him to 7,600. He's projected for 1% 1% ownership there, like I'm not considering playing him there. That's, FanDuel made that decision easy. But on DraftKings at 5,500, it's a little higher than we'd like to see for TJ McConnell. But if we figure he's a 1 fantasy point per minute guy without Halliburton on the court, we have him projected for about 24 minutes. I mean, he's going to hit about 5x value on average. And we've seen what he's been doing. His usage is insane. And the thing is, he's not really scoring points. He's getting these fantasy points through rebounds, assists, and steals. He had a triple double last game. So he got up to 31 minutes in the previous game, I think. And
yeah, 32. Yep.
Oh, that's even better. So if he has the potential to get up to 30 minutes, like we know he's going to play 24. And at 24 minutes, I think 5,500 is a fine price. And if he has the potential to get up to 31, 5,500 is still going to be a pretty good price for him. I'm not sure his ownership's actually going to come in at 15%. I kind of feel like it's still going to come in higher because he's been, destroying the past few games. So he's not a core play today, but TJ McConnell, I still think he's a good tournament target. And I think he's playable.
Yeah, so the thing with TJ McConnell is he's definitely you're chasing minutes there. You're chasing the game being close and hoping that basically he gets the minutes, because if he does, he should be a strong price point play. At the same time, he did go 4 for 4 from three-point line. That's not going to happen again. 11 for 16 field goal attempts. Probably not going to get that many field goal attempts again. So, yeah, the big number, 56 and 43 DK points, probably not there. I think what we're shooting for if we're playing TJ McConnell is like 30 to 35 DK points, which I think is in the realm of possibilities there.
I agree.
So from there, I mean, I feel like it's difficult. Like Buddy Hield, I feel like he's obviously someone that can get hot. He's been shooting a ton of 3 balls, 10 3 balls the last game, 0 for 3 against Memphis, 12, 15, 12. He's someone that can easily get hot from behind the line and put up 40 DK points. I feel like at 6.4 in this matchup, I feel like he's a strong GPP play. What are your kind of thoughts on Buddy Hield?
Oh, I agree with Buddy Hield. He's probably $1,000 too cheap on DraftKings at least.
Yeah.
He's still pulling reasonable ownership. He's probably the guy that I want to get to the most on this team if it's not TJ McConnell. Miles Turner's there, but again, there's other cheaper centers, and he's pulling ownership today. Nembhard, Mathurin are both pulling a little bit more. Like Mathurin at 32% on FanDuel at 5,500. Like, yeah, he can pay that off, sure, but it's a 9-game slate, 32% owned. There's a lot of plays in that range.
And he's been hit or miss too.
That's the thing. The game that he really went off, he played like he always plays aggressive, but this game he was really getting after it. He played, I think, like 8 or 9 more minutes than average. So he overperformed that game. I think he's going a little bit over-owned today. Mathurin's a guy that I'm trying to avoid. Kind of the same with Nembhard. We know his rates are down without Halliburton, but those rates are the same with McConnell. So those few minutes Nembhard's getting without McConnell on the floor to me aren't enough. Like he's capable of it. We saw him score 62 fantasy points. McConnell didn't play that game. But this ownership, it's a 9-game slate. There's so many other plays.
And so like, just looking at Miles Turner, the price difference between FanDuel and DraftKings is pretty significant to me. I feel like he's probably going to be a little bit lower owned than we have projected at 15% on FanDuel. Like you said, there's a ton of great center plays. To me, that could be a spot in which you do gain some leverage on the field, because I feel like that number is going to be a little bit lower than that, and because of the price point. On DraftKings, I do feel like at 7.1 going against the Thunder, it is kind of a strong play. Where would you be looking for the Thunder? Is it just Shai and Giddey, or is there anyone else that you could be looking at?
So it's pretty much just SGA and Giddey. Giddey, so for a while it wasn't great to play him when his price was a little bit higher with SGA, and because his rates were just down with SGA versus SGA being out. But now his rates are fine next to SGA, so I'm really happy to get to Josh Giddey today. He's 7,500 on DraftKings, 7,900 on FanDuel, coming around 20% ownership on both sites. It might be a little bit high, but I think it's fine. And then SGA. Since Giddey's pulling all the attention today, SGA's ownership might even come a little bit lower than that 7 and 13%. This should be a popular game. SGA and Giddey are the 2 main targets from OKC. Jalen Williams, the big man Jalen Williams has been getting more playing time recently. So at min price, if you want to take some shots, it's probably okay. On FanDuel, he's power forward eligible, which is great. But as for the rest of OKC, it's really tough because this rotation kind of changes every day. So it's hard to have faith in the minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on into the next game, Miami versus the Pelicans. pretty much what we are seeing is the chat loves you. That's the conclusion here? Not really any questions. It's just talking you up there. So it's pretty awesome.
Appreciate you guys.
So yeah, Miami versus New Orleans. We got a 3.5 point spread there. Looking at the over and under for that game, 220. So kind of an ugly game there.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any plays that we can make in that game?
So Miami is always a tough team to target teams against, or to target players against, but I think that the public kind of, I don't know, they buy into that too much. Like the projections are based on the matchup with Miami, and so I think people kind of double dock them. Like they give them an even more negative boost just because they're playing Miami. So their ownerships are coming in pretty reasonable. CJ McCollum, I know he's expensive, 9K on DraftKings, 8,900 on FanDuel, and it is a tough matchup against Miami, but he's another guy coming in at 1%, 2% owned. Like I said, it's a tough matchup. The other guys are better plays, but at this ownership, I'm going to take some shots on CJ McCollum. And then Najee Marshall, he's kind of a polarizing player because he's 5,600, 5,800, and some people like him a lot, and some people think he's just a terrible play every night. I think he's awesome. He's playing heavy minutes, and for me, that's the main thing. If they're on the court, they have a chance to produce fantasy points. And he fills the small forward, power forward position on DraftKings, small forward on FanDuel. His price is great, Najee Marshall. He's pulling ownership, but I'm okay getting there. And then Jose Alvarado is pulling way higher ownership than I would like to see. Like 18% on DraftKings, 24% on FanDuel. We haven't projected for 27 minutes. The minutes projection is probably okay, but for a backup point guard, I don't think this guy deserves that much ownership. They're probably going to have Dyson Daniels in the starting lineup again. So this is another guy I'm probably going to try to pivot away from if his ownership is going to stay that high.
Is that on both FanDuel and DraftKings?
Yeah, DraftKings, he's 18%. The 4,400 on DraftKings, I'm happier to get to than the 5K on FanDuel at 24%. Like the prices are fine. It's just that I think the ownership is a little bit too high for this 9-game slate.
Yeah, and you factor in the poor matchup then at that point, does feel a little bit too high.
Yeah. And so those are spots I'm going to probably try to get different at. But Najee Marshall, I'm still going to have a bit. And CJ McCollum at the 1%, I'll have a couple percent in my exposures.
Yeah, I mean, he is shooting the ball a ton, like 20 shot attempts, getting over 7 3-point attempts. So it doesn't take much to get hot and, really kind of just break the slate, put up 50 to 48 DK points. It's not like he's too priced up to the point where it's going to hurt you that much if he only does 45. I mean, obviously GPP wise, you're shooting for the upside. You're shooting for the hot night shooting, but.
Yeah, if I'm playing CJ McCollum tonight, I'm hoping for 54 plus. At that 9K price tag, because there's going to be a lot of other guys on this slate that have good games tonight. There's too many good players for there not to be. And then Jonas Valanciunas. So with Larry Nance, his minutes are just kind of capped, but he's been doing very well with less than 30 minutes recently. His price is up to 6,900 and 7,700. So the 1% on FanDuel, I'm probably not going to get there, but 4% ownership on DraftKings, 6,900 Jonas. I'm okay taking a couple shots there too, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a cheap, 45 DK points in a GPP. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll move on into the next game, which to me is going to be a pretty appealing game. We got the Charlotte Hornets versus the Houston Rockets. Okay, that game is 237 over and under. Let's look at the spread. 2.5 point spread. So once again, don't really have to worry about the blowout potential, which, I keep saying that, but it's kind of been a huge thing. It seems like this year we have seen much more blowouts than normal. So it's just something I always like to kind of echo in there. To me, this could be a game in which we want to attack, but I kind of feel like it's also like that Indy-Oklahoma City game where we're just kind of trying to get lucky with some of the ancillary plays. Like we kind of know who the studs are, but at the same time, the other pieces in this game are a little bit more difficult to kind of figure out. What's your approach with this game?
So with the Rock, so I agree. This is a great game to target, similar to the Indiana OKC game, but this game is pulling less ownership than that game. And KPJ is questionable. If KPJ is out, Eric Gordon has been playing phenomenal. He's still playing the same minutes, but he gets a huge usage bump. He gets an 8% usage bump with KPJ off the court this season. Jabari Smith Jr. is second at about +5, and then Jalen Green +3.5. So everyone gets a bump, but Eric Gordon at his price is probably going to be the guy that I want to target a little bit. He's only projected for 2% and 1% ownership. That's going to change if KPJ is ruled out. Maybe he comes up to say 10%, but on DraftKings at 4,500, he's playing 34 minutes a game. I'm okay getting to Eric Gordon a little bit. And then Alperen Sengun has been playing phenomenal, but his price is coming up. So when guys' prices are, this is the highest he's ever been priced. Yeah. And so when they're max price, people are going to be nervous to play him. I think that their ownership probably comes in a little bit less than it should. Like if they raised his price a couple weeks ago, and he's been still playing phenomenal, then I think his ownership would pull more than 10% today. But I think he's a pretty good play. We like to target big men against Charlotte. So even with that high price, I want to take some shots. And,
yeah, we got him projected to get 30 minutes in that game. So at about 10%, we got him 8% on DraftKings and FanDuel. I mean, it's no shock that he did well against the Lakers, another team in which targeting centers against. So, yeah, that seems like a pretty good spot for him. I did kind of want to echo a point about Eric Gordon there that you kind of brought up. Would be a much better play if that news breaks that way with Eric Gordon. The thing with him is, and I think this makes for a great GPP play with Eric Gordon, it's like the guy is going to shoot a lot. And if he gets hot, then he could really break the slate. That's really just what you're shooting for. I shouldn't say he's going to shoot a lot. If he's hot, he's going to shoot the ball a lot. That's really what it's predicated on. He's been shooting from 3-ball land 0 for 2, 1 for 5, 1 for 4, 3 for 7, 1 for 3. He's been terrible from the 3-ball range. So it doesn't take much for him to have a good night shooting. And he was still able to put up 33, 32, 20 DK points, not that great. 24 at this price tag, that's okay. But given the matchup, if he has a good night shooting the basketball, it wouldn't be shocking to see him kind of just quote unquote break the slate or be a very solid kind of price point play. So I do like that a decent amount there. That's a good call. Charlotte wise, Mason Plumlee has been just kind of frustrating lately because it seems like he is due to come down and it just hasn't happened. And I just kind of come to the conclusion that, hey, LaMelo Ball is kind of the reason why. It seems like he's been much more productive with Ball in there. What are your thoughts on Mason Plumlee at 6.3? Because to me, this seems like the matchup's great. The price point's great. Just seems a little bit too cheap.
Yeah, so one thing, Mason Plumlee, I think the price is good, but then I look at the ownership and we have him projected for 22% on DraftKings. The only 6% on FanDuel, he's 7,200 there. But the 22% on DraftKings for 6,300, it's just too high. There's so many other centers with lower ownership. Like Mason Plumlee is a good play. Houston is one of the teams that we do like targeting centers against, but 22% ownership for Mason Plumlee, I mean, it's kind of like, what are we expecting him to do? There's just other players at, even $1,000 cheaper that can put up the same stat line as him tonight with less ownership, gives us more leverage on the field. And then with LaMelo's always in play to me.
Yeah.
His price is still reasonable until he starts getting up to like 10.5, then I'm going to shy away. But it's a fast-paced game. It's great for LaMelo.
Yeah.
And then Jalen McDaniels is going to be a pretty decent value play too, around 4,900 on DraftKings. He's 5,700 on FanDuel, tougher to get to, but I like him on DraftKings with decent ownership.
Yeah, so for me with Mason Plumlee, this is where I think it's nice having us both on at the same time. Like for me, I think kind of my style of play, more single entry based. Like to me, he's kind of a standout play at 6.3, kind of something I feel like I'm targeting. But for you, it makes perfect sense. Like 22% projected ownership, where we do have a slate in which there are a ton of, I don't want to say elite plays, but similar plays. That makes perfect sense to not eat that chalk. But for me, it's one that I kind of feel like I will be trying to eat. So I think that's the value here of having us both on here. So Tom is Boyle there. He's trying to say that you are great at pronunciation of names. If you have the chat pulled up, he has one that that he wants you to pronunciate.
Sandro Mamukilishvili.
There you go.
Thank you, Tom. Yes. Appreciate you.
Trying to see if we have any other news or any questions in there.
The top value on DK is Naz Reid, but that's kind of a free square, so I don't really want to include that.
Should we get into that game next? Minnesota versus Denver? We could do LA versus Utah, but we'll get into Minnesota versus Denver. So the issue with that game is that the Minnesota Timberwolves are projected to lose by 9.5 points. Okay, so that could be an issue, but that could also benefit Reed a little bit minutes-wise. Looking at the game, it is projected to be a higher scoring game, 238.5. So we already kind of mentioned Naz Reid. Let's dive into that. So what are your thoughts on Naz Reid tonight?
So Naz Reid, I had in every single lineup I made on the last slate that Rudy Gobert was in when he was questionable. They ruled him in a few minutes before the game, and then he got hurt immediately. And it's like, well, great. But Naz Reid didn't really play that many minutes that game. Kyle Anderson was kind of the one that took advantage of that. But we've seen what Naz Reid does. A few weeks ago when Rudy Gobert was out, he got up $2,000 more than he is today, and everyone was still playing him. He's a phenomenal fantasy points per minute guy. He sees Jokic tonight, so it's a little bit tougher of matchup, but 4,800 power forward eligibility on DraftKings. The center only on FanDuel. If Naz Reid comes in at 71% at 5,200 with center only eligible on FanDuel, I mean, he's a great play, but 71% is so much on a 9-game slate when you can only play one center. At least on DraftKings, like I just have him in power forward. I'm probably not going to play him in the center position at all. There's too many other centers. But Naz Reid is definitely going to be one of the big staples in my lineup tonight. And then Anthony Edwards, great play. D'Angelo at this low price is okay too at the low ownership.
So that's kind of my question. Let's say Naz Reid struggles. Who would benefit the most other than Russell and Ant-Man? I feel like those are two kind of. Are they plug-in plays at this point? Like if I was doing a cash build, I feel like those are two pretty good plays. But the issue that I have is that the game could blow out. So like, I feel like those are both fine plays. But what about someone like Jalen Noel, where if the game blows out, he's still going to get his minutes. Either way, he should be someone that is going to get minutes. It is a good matchup. It's a great price tag. The production has fallen off recently, but could they shift to more of a small lineup with him in? I guess, what are your thoughts on that?
So with Jalen Noel, everyone wanted to play him when he was on that hot streak near the beginning of the season, and he's the same price he was now. Nothing's changed about the situation. It's probably a better situation now than it was when he was chalk, but no one's playing him today. So if you want to take some shots on Jalen Noel, that seems fine. The 4,100 on DraftKings, point guard, shooting guard eligibility, it's probably an appropriate price for him. The guy that, to me, when Kyle Anderson is out, that's when I really want to play Jalen Noel. Kyle Anderson and D'Angelo being out. But Jalen Noel, his price is good. There's other guys I'd like to get to, but at 1% or 0% ownership, that's going to seem fine. And then with Minnesota for the backup big behind Naz Reid, they've kind of been switching between Luke Garza and Nathan Knight, so I'm not really sure if we even need to take shots there at all. Taurean Prince probably picks up a couple more minutes, but it's really Naz Reid is really the guy from Minnesota for me today.
Okay. So Denver is. Are you chasing any of them at all? Just obviously with it being a higher scoring game, it does have potential to blow out. I mean, obviously Jokic on any slate could go off. Kind of what's your approach with that?
So Jokic is a guy I'm typically over the field on every single slate. We haven't projected for 16% on DraftKings, only 4% on FanDuel. Jokic is going to be a phenomenal play on FanDuel today because everyone's going cheap at center. Like another center is probably going to put up 50, but if Jokic puts up 80, then you're going to want him in your lineup. DraftKings at 16%, I still think is pretty reasonable at 11,400. And then Jamal Murray, 6,500 on DraftKings is too cheap. The 7,200 on FanDuel at the 4% ownership, I'm okay. That's a great tournament play too. And then pretty much all of them, Aaron Gordon, MPJ, they're all good tournament plays. And then
who would benefit the most from, I guess, it being a blowout and the Stars not getting their final rotation?
Bones Highland. Yeah, Bones Highland is a guy I'm always willing to take shots on. I'd prefer for him to be a little bit cheaper, but he has a shooting guard eligibility on DraftKings coming in at 1%. And he's a guy who can put up that score in his regular playing time. And then if he gets a few minutes of blowout run, then it's even better. But he doesn't always get the blowout run. Like he'll lose the blowout run to whoever's behind him sometimes. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so kind of my thought process there, it's the back end of a back-to-back, right? They played last night, so maybe Murray sees a little bit more of a reduced minute share, and then maybe they force Bones Highland into a couple more minutes that way as well.
Yeah, so Bones is a guy I'm always okay to get to at 1%, and then if Jamal plays, then he's a great player.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the next game. We got the Clippers versus the Jazz. Let me pull up the game over and under for that. 228 and a half is the over and under. The spread for that game, looking at it, wow, that's a little bit shocking to me. Utah's favored to win by 8. Okay, so what are your kind of thoughts on that game?
Well, Utah being 8-point favorites against the Clippers, so I'm not sure if they think that Lauri Markkanen is going to be in or not. Right now, he's questionable. I think most of the sites have Lauri Markkanen as in, so I have to assume that 8-point spread is with Lauri in. So Kawhi and Paul George are out. John Wall is out, but John Wall being out is probably better for the Clippers. And so Zubac is a guy I was targeting last night coming in at 2% ownership. He played like 35 minutes, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I was hoping for. I knew his usage was going to be low. It's so funny. If you watch the games, he gets so frustrated when he doesn't touch the ball every single possession. He just throws his hands up like, what are you guys doing? And I kind of agree. Just give him the ball. He had a tough matchup against Embiid, but So Utah is a team that I like to target big men against, but mostly when Kelly Olynyk is starting. It's much different when Walker Kessler's starting because he's a better defensive player than Kelly Olynyk. Um, so Zubac's still coming in at low ownership,
Mhm.
5,300 on DraftKings. I'm going to love getting there. He's going to be projected to play over 30 minutes. He should. Ty Lue hasn't been very weird with the rotations lately. And then for the other guys, Terrence Mann, 5,700. He's probably appropriately priced, so he's not too expensive. He's an okay tournament play. If we want to get down to some Reggie Jackson, assuming he's in the starting lineup, 3,500 on DraftKings. Like he's been awful. He's been losing playing time, but John Wall's out, and the 4,200 on FanDuel for Reggie Jackson is pretty reasonable too.
Mhm. No, no love for Powell. Just priced up a little bit too much, a little bit too chalky.
For which player?
Norman Powell.
Oh, Norman Powell. Yeah, so Norman Powell is coming in with a lot of ownership. He's
Mhm.
6K. I guess I mean he's kind of a guy I'm overlooking a little bit today. I guess kind
Yeah.
of like Karis LeVert. He's going to step into a higher usage role. He's going to get more minutes than usual. Um,
I would
like
much rather play LeVert at his price tag rather than Powell.
yeah, I'd rather get down to LeVert and kind of just hope that, like, I'm gonna have a bunch of Vika Zubac, I'm gonna have some Terrence Mann, and I think I'm just gonna hope that those guys do it. I'm gonna try to mix in Reggie Jackson too at that cheap price. But Norman Powell, I mean, his price is fine. His ownership doesn't seem egregious. FanDuel 35% is a lot, but DraftKings 20% seems fine.
Okay. Yeah, we got some people saying that they're Jayhawks going to fade Jokic, and then Race Fan fading Joker tonight. Mobley at 6.1 on DraftKings feels a little bit too cheap. I feel like just kind of that wasn't really a question. That was more of a statement. But I feel like with the Cleveland Bigs, is it kind of one or the other?
That so I've went back and forth with that this season. That is a rule
Mhm.
that sometimes if they're both going to be popular, like today I don't have that much. So if they show up in a lineup together, I don't hate it. But
Mhm.
if you're going to play them both a lot, then their prices aren't that high. They're both below 7K. So I don't
Yep.
think it's terrible to have them both in the same lineup. But I get what you're saying. So if you do want to set a rule to only play one, that might be okay. But on days like this, like I'm pretty much just going to play whoever's lower owned, and
Yep.
especially if it's Jared Allen.
Try to get unique with it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. All right, so we got a couple of questions. Zubac or Jared Allen?
Zubac or Jared Allen. So the pricing is different. Like Zubac is probably going to fit easier into your lineup, especially if you're
Mhm.
playing Luca, because it's kind of hard to get to Luca, but if you're playing a nearly 7K center, because we still want to get probably one other 8K play in that lineup.
Yep.
And the thing, you just have to consider how different is your lineup. If you're jamming Luca, or I don't know, whoever the popular plays are, you just have to find somewhere that you're going to get different.
That makes sense. Yeah. For me, I feel like I would trust Jared Allen a little bit more if that's more of a cash question. Um, so Jayhawk said that Zubac might sit, and that could honestly be the reason why that spread seems
Mhm.
alarming. They might just be doing it that way, and obviously either way it could blow out just with Kawhi and Paul George out.
Yeah, with Zubac questionable, like if he doesn't play, then we have to see the starting lineup because it could be Moses Brown or it could just be some combination of Batum, Covington. But pay
Yeah.
attention to that because we're probably going to want to play a couple of the Clippers value guys, especially since it's a late game and they're probably going to be a little bit less owned than they should.
Is that a situation where you don't care who it is? You're just trying to get exposure to them?
Yeah, I don't care who it is, and it's typically just I'm going to take a look at the ownerships and see if there's a large difference. I'm probably just going to prefer the guy that's lower priced, assuming it's still pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we'll get into the last game of the night, and then we'll kind of just touch on our top plays of the night, kind of recap it both for FanDuel and DraftKings. So the last game is going to be the Kings versus the Lakers, which should kind of be a really good game as well, assuming that everyone is active. And heck, if it's not, that could open up some value. So huge over and under 246. So what do we do with this game? How do we treat it?
So it's such a fantastic game to target for DFS purposes. Like the total is what 150 by now. It's going to be 150
Yeah,
by
it
the
keeps
or
going up.
250 by the time it tips. This is the highest total. I keep saying that this is the highest total I've seen this season.
Yep.
It's two. And so LeBron is very expensive now. It was great when he was 10-5 because we could just play him a bunch. But at this
I didn't get
11-5,
what was going on
11-4,
there. What was going on there? I don't get it. Like, what was the logic behind keeping him at that price point? It just seems so strange. I don't get it.
I don't know. I'm not sure about this, but I kind of feel like a lot of it has to do with the ownership. Since he wasn't like getting jammed in at that price, they didn't feel the need to raise it. However, their
Mm,
algorithm works. Because I noticed that the prices will change much more if a guy's higher owned versus if they have a good
that's true.
performance. So if
But it's not
anyone
like he was
knows,
terribly low owned. It was I don't
no,
know, just
no,
strange
yeah,
trend.
he was still pulling ownership. He was still in a winning lineup, every third night or so. And LeBron James coming in at 10% ownership against Sacramento. I don't know why he's power forward center on DraftKings. It's kind of weird.
That is
But
weird.
FanDuel, small forward, power forward. LeBron, he's a great play. Russell Westbrook's a little bit expensive now, but at 1%, 9K on DraftKings, he's been putting up 50 regularly lately. So if you want to take some shots on Russ in a fantastic matchup, even though he's max price, it's a pretty good play. Thomas Bryant has been losing playing time, and I'm not quite sure why. Like, he was a guy I was very excited to play a couple of weeks ago because he was consistently playing 31 plus minutes. But we have him projected for 24 minutes tonight. So at 24 minutes, he's not really going to be that great of a play. But if we think, I don't know what could happen because I'm not sure what the reason is he's losing playing time. I know Wenyen Gabriel's been playing very well.
Yeah.
But
he's pretty cheap too, 4.6.
Yeah, with no ownership is the main thing for me with Wenyen because it's not a player that we really want to target. 5,200 on FanDuel is probably a little bit too high, but 4,600 on DraftKings, it's still a little bit too high, but 0% ownership. I mean,
so he had 32 against Houston, and then against Dallas, he had 31. Assuming that this game is a higher scoring game, like it's projected to be, obviously Houston was a very similar game, 140 to 132, very high scoring. What DK points or FanDuel points does he need to put up? Fantasy points does he need to put up for you? What are you shooting for if you're playing him?
If I'm playing Wenyen Gabriel, I want 32 probably at this 4,600 because there's probably other 4,600 guys that are going to put up 30 plus tonight. Naz Reid is the main one, but you should have Naz Reid in most of your lineups anyway.
So to me, that's just given the game and him being close to a double-double and whatnot, I feel like that actually is a good GPP spot. Obviously not something you're loading up on, but just kind of the logic behind it, gaining more minutes, playing better, a game that you want to try to stack. It's a cheap price point for trying to stack that game.
You show me a 0%, 1% on guy. It doesn't take much to talk me into him, so I'm all about it.
So for the Kings, is it just loading up on De'Aaron Fox at 8.3? Because obviously in this high scoring of a game, should be able to go off. Last game out against the Lakers, 48 DK points. I know he struggled in one of the games, but the other one, I'm pretty sure he went for near 50 as well. So what are your kind of thoughts on De'Aaron Fox at 8.3 on DraftKings? Don't have his price pulled up on FanDuel, so I'll pull that up here shortly.
So De'Aaron is a guy, he's 8,300 on both sites, projected for pretty reasonable ownership, 7% DraftKings, 12% FanDuel. I think De'Aaron is a pretty great play whenever he's closer to 8K, especially at low ownership in the last game of the night against the Lakers. He's going to look fantastic. Kind of the same thing with Demantis. Demontis, he has power forward eligibility on FanDuel, which is great. That's why he's a little bit higher on there, 13% on FanDuel, 5% on DraftKings, center only. A lot of great centers to play, but if you can fit Demontis in your lineup, 5%, 10-5 against the Lakers, I think he's been pretty consistently over 50 with the potential for more. And so he's probably higher risk than usual because we have so many centers today. But Demontis and then Kevin Huerter, 5,400 on DraftKings. Not sure why they lowered his price. He lost minutes because he was coming back from illness. But under 5% ownership, I'm always going to take shots on Kevin Huerter. Kind of the same thing with Harrison Barnes, but his price is a little bit higher.
Let me pull up the projected minutes for Huerter there. What is it, 31? So, hasn't played minutes the last two games. If he's getting those minutes at that ownership in this game, sign me up for that. That'd be pretty nice there. I mean, 5.4, that's a cheap price tag.
Just looking down the list, there's not a player we have projected for double-digit ownership on DraftKings from this game, and this is one of the best. This is one of the best possible games to target the Lakers versus Sacramento. So, especially with the last night, with all the swaps people make, we get some news they're going to lose those spots from the last game, even if you try to set it up early. But I think we kind of want to over-project this game a little bit, and then throughout the night we'll get news, and we can take advantage of the news because we have roster spots available from the last game.
I'm going through and randomly trying to click them in there. So without putting LeBron in there, which obviously you wouldn't want to do, and without having Westbrook in there, so I did Fox, Huerter, Barnes, Gabriel, Sabonis. Have an average salary remaining of 5.5. Obviously, could put Naz Reid in there, or is it Naz Reid? I've been saying that wrong for a while. Then,
I think it's Naz. I have no idea though.
All right, but I mean that's pretty intriguing to just kind of game. I know once again you said you don't really game stack, but that could obviously be a game in which is high scoring, and there's just intriguing ways to stack it because they are relatively cheap. Besides Westbrook, who's priced up, LeBron's accurately priced. Sabonis is probably too cheap given the matchup, and Fox is too cheap. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, great game to target. And if you're playing the night slate, like it's a pretty juicy night slate tonight. The ownerships are going to be more appropriate on the night slate, but
Mhm.
it's probably a pretty good night to get in there.
Yeah. So let's just go over our favorite plays on each slate.
Mhm.
And I'll just kind of let you take that. So for FanDuel, where are you looking? I know we got this question a few times, like who's your favorite FanDuel plays? So let's go ahead and get
Um,
into that.
so FanDuel, Nas Reed's going to be the highest projected player, but I don't know that he's necessarily my favorite because he takes up the center spot. He's definitely the best play at center, just points per dollar, what we
Mhm.
project in terms of minutes tonight. I'm just going down the list, sorting it by ownership on FanDuel, and
Yeah.
there's like
So we
no
got
one.
Reed, Powell, Matherin, Marshall, Luca, Robert Covington popping up there. So did we get news that we missed for Zubac there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Covington was popping for me before we started the show too, so
Okay.
it's probably just they gave him 20 something minutes, and that was
Yeah.
enough.
Well, just
22
on
minutes.
FanDuel where it's 4 point, I guess it doesn't really matter. Never mind. Never mind.
I mean, Karras is a pretty great play at 5,200. Like, if I
Yeah.
was starting a lineup on FanDuel, it'd probably be something like Karras, Levert, make a decision if you're going to play Nas Reed at center or not.
Mhm.
Luka Doncic, probably. I mean, Luka's a phenomenal play at 12-4.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to mix in a player like Josh Giddey or Darius Garland, that's probably great. Um, all right. Let's go to guys like below 10%. A couple guys that we could throw in there. Jared Allen's under 10%. Alperen Sengun, Jalen Brunson's under 10%. Yeah, I guess there's not that many great value plays. Like Jokic is going to come in 4% on FanDuel. I'm probably more likely to get to Jokic over Reed on FanDuel and just make concessions in my lineup elsewhere.
Okay. Makes sense. I'm sorting it by like less than 10%, trying to at least right now.
Let me
And
see
then
if.
by value. So who's popping up in that sense? Mike Conley, the third best.
Yeah, Mike.
Surprising. PJ Washington, Dyson Daniels, MPJ, Herder. Herder just continues to feel like a decent play as this video has progressed. I don't know. GPP wise, obviously.
Yeah, I'm going to be a big fan of getting to Kevin Huerter tonight. Kevin Huerter.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the DraftKings side. So, looking at the DK value, the players that are ranking out the best, Reed, obviously, Daniels, Kessler. We didn't really mention Kessler. Obviously, on FanDuel, the price point really spiked up. Are we chasing any of that recent upside, or kind of what are we doing there?
Yeah, with Kessler, I guess I forgot to mention him, but even if Laurie Markkinen plays, if Kessler's going to come in with this 14% ownership on DraftKings at 5,400, I'm going to play a lot of Walker Kessler tonight. And then if Laurie
Hmm.
Markkinen is out, his ownership's going to skyrocket, but I'm probably just going to end up jamming him.
I mean,
5,400.
on FanDuel, it's not going to go up that much, right? I mean, maybe
Yeah,
8%.
no, FanDuel, he's 7,900. You should just play Nas Reed or anyone else on FanDuel
Okay,
for
so if it stays
7,900.
low, with Lori out, is that a great spot or no?
The thing is on FanDuel with Walker Kessler, like it's so hard for him to pay off the 7,900 price given the other center options we have on the
Mhm.
slate. Like even if it was 6,900, then maybe we have a little bit more of a decision. But like kind of like with TJ McConnell, FanDuel kind of just made the decision easy for us and just don't play him. But DraftKings 5,400 Walker Kessler, regardless if Laurie's in or not, is going to be one of my main targets tonight. And I also forgot to mention Mitchell Robinson when we were talking about New York. He's one of my favorite cheap centers. He's playing
Yeah.
35 plus minutes every night. It's not a tough matchup against Washington. I like big men against Washington recently. And so they're going to both look great.
I was looking at his like props as well. Rebounds were set at like 9.5, and seems pretty doable there. So
Oh,
chance for
yeah.
him to get a double.
Oh, yeah. For Walker Kessler, right?
No, for Mitchell Robinson
Oh, for
actually.
Mitchell Robinson? Yeah, for
Yeah.
both of them. Yeah. So Mitchell Robinson I mean, the minutes are there and he's on the court. So he's coming in under 10% owned. He's going to be a great play, too.
Not a bad matchup as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, so real quickly, we'll finish this out. So I think we decide Levert, Reed for. I'm trying to make a DraftKings line to just close out the video. I kind of always like to do that. Just kind of. So who from there? I kind of like Fox. I feel like Fox is going to be a safe play, but also an upside play, kind of just given the game. Probably locking in around 40 DK points. And I know I'm sorry, I don't want to mess up your mindset with the low owned GPP plays and whatnot, but trying to fit both in there. Mindsets in there, both mindsets. So from there,
Yeah.
I'm looking at a small forward play. Powell, eat the chalk, or what would be? Because I put Levert at shooting guard.
Yeah, I'd be fine with Powell at the small forward. I mean, he's just the easy guy. He's the one that makes sense at that price in the position.
Okay. So for center, obviously we have a lot of great plays. We got Jokic, Sabonis, potentially Porzingis. Obviously, that's more of a GPP play. Sengun a little bit priced up. Jared Allen, probably my favorite in terms of cash.
Yeah, let's plug in Jared Allen.
Okay.
Because one thing I like to do is lately I've been running a lot of two center lineups, and so my utility flex spot is usually also going to have another center.
So that's what I was about to say. I see Mason Plumlee there. And like I said, for cash wise, I think he's a good play. Just been so consistent 45, 30, 45, 34, 37 DK points. Been a very consistent fantasy producer as long as the game stays close. Obviously, the matchup with Houston is a matchup that we like. Is that fine? Are we fine with that, Allen and Plumlee?
Yeah. Let's
All right.
plug Allen and Plumlee in. Sounds great.
All right, so we got a guard and a forward, about 6.4 left over. Do we want to pay up? And is there any value that was really sticking out? I kind of forget now. Covington a little bit. I remember was a decent value we could put in the forward.
Yeah, Covington's sitting at 3.6K.
Might be a little bit too risky, but let's just see. So Covington there. And then guard wise, we have 9.2. Obviously, that's a lot. Could go Westbrook.
Yeah, we could go Westbrook.
McCollum.
Yeah, Westbrook, McCollum. So Westbrook's going to have an easier matchup, and his minutes have been going up versus McCollum anyway. Great matchup for Westbrook at 1% ownership.
Okay, so we'll do that. I don't know. I think closing it out, probably want to switch Westbrook and Covington. Still have an hour before lock here.
Yeah.
So if anyone has any questions, get them in. If not, we'll be getting out of here in about 30 seconds. So some current call things. If you guys enjoyed the video, you should have already liked. I should have started with that as well. Make sure to give us a like, guys. Even after the video is posted, that just helps out the channel a lot. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe. We are trying to do the live streams and just push out more NBA content for you guys. But we also have to figure out like what is best for the channel. If that is going to be live streams, we'll be happy to do that. Happy to assist you guys out. So you kind of just got to let us know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Make sure to give us a follow on Twitter as well. Both of our handles are kind of below our picture there. So make sure to like us there. But if you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, I was going through and kind of showing you guys the tools. Didn't show you the lineup builder. That is available as well. Can check that out. It's pretty easy to use. You just click on whichever sport you want. DK main slate, click change, and then it's going to load for you. I think because I'm doing a live stream right now, it's taking slightly longer than it typically would because I'm manning the live stream right now. So apologies for that, but yep, it is taking a while to load. All right, so top FanDuel value. Is it just Reed still, right?
It's Reed, but because of like how unflexible I guess it is to play Reed at your center position, I'm not sure that there's another like great value play on FanDuel below 5K that we love right now. Like Dyson Daniels is the guy showing up near the top of the model. Mike Conley's 5K, that seems good. Kevin Werder 6K, it's not exactly a value play. I'm hoping something will pop up a little bit later on FanDuel.
So how do you go about approaching that? I'm very curious. With it being a bigger game, do you leave any wiggle room for late night games or just kind of as it comes, adjust to it?
Well, like tonight specifically, I'm already going to have a lot more exposure to Sacramento, Lakers, Denver, Minnesota, and Utah Clippers, I think, than the field. So I'm not really worried about it. Just in terms of like having ability to late swap, I'm going to have all the flexibility I need.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, that will do it for our first two-man live stream. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, you know what to do. Give a like and subscribe. Thanks, Chuck, for being here. That was awesome. Killed it. First YouTube live stream, right?
Oh, yeah, this was the first time ever on YouTube live stream. Shout out to you for being a phenomenal host and making this as easy as possible. So it's a pretty great team we got here.
Yep, and make sure to be in the Discord chat as well, guys. We'll be in there chatting. Chuck typically goes live on there as well. So if he seemed like a polished gem in this video, that's partially why as well. All right, thanks, guys.